I snitched on every I could think of. I did an interview for Dateline and American Greed, and I ratted on a guy that I was in prison with. So I got 7 years and 15 years. I got 12 years off. I am a rat. Like, I cooperated. I desperately was ready to cut every throat to get out of prison, to save my ass. So I've been called, you're a rat, you're a scumbag, you're absolutely. And I had to weigh, there came a choice where I had to weigh the respect of my fellow inmates or 12 years off my sentence. And I said, it. So whenever somebody's like, yo, bro, yeah, man, you're a rat. You know what I never say? You don't know I am a rat, but I'm free.
Right.
I'll take that rat. Gotcha. Like, I don't even have the luxury of being able to say you're wrong. And I'm not going to get upset about it because it's true, because that's the label you're willing to wear for 12 years of freedom. You're damn right it is.
And I love this, and it's great for me to be able to react because I love that his honesty. He puts it plain and simple. You know what? I snitched. I'm a rat, or whatever you want to call him or call me. And I think that me and my brother always say that we don't make excuses, right? And it seems like nowadays, especially for social media, everyone has an excuse. Even the people who hide behind it, and then the people who have, they always come up with some type of excuse, and no one ever says, I did it to save my own ass. And I think that hearing him, like, it's just refreshing. Someone who takes accountability. I think my brother and I have taken accountability, but just the way he lays it out, where it's like, do I care about what people say, or do I want to take 10, 15, 20 years off my sentence, save my own ass, or care about what people are thinking? And he has a great story. He talks about how he cooperated against someone in prison and got a Rule 35. A Rule 35 is basically a reduction of your sentence after the fact, after you've been sentenced. And that's really big, especially in the feds, where people will not cooperate maybe, or will cooperate, and then later on try to get a Rule 35 to get a deduction of their sentence. It exists. It happens all the time, aka Big Meech, right? And his story. But it's something that's a tool. It's something that federal inmates know for sure. They know how to use it, and it's a tactic that they use to come home early and cut some time off. But I just love the way he explains it. Loves the way I love the way his honesty, and big shouts out to him. And it's something that many people think and feel, but they just won't say it. And for those people who feel like they're totally against this, good for you, But this is the reality of what the life is.
The compound with this guy named Ron Wilson. Ron Wilson ran a Ponzi scheme where he stole $57 million from pension funds and churches. Not a nice guy, but I liked Ron. But he's cooperating in his case, hoping to get some time off his sentence. He keeps saying they're not going to cut any time off his sentence. And I keep saying, why? He goes, because they think I hid Ponzi scheme money. I said, well, you didn't. You gave them all the Ponzi scheme money. You don't understand. Okay. This goes on for months. And then one day he keeps saying it. And I said, why do you keep saying that, bro? And he goes, can I trust you? And I go, probably not. And he goes, I did hide some Ponzi scheme money. And I went, okay. And he said, I gave my wife, not much, $150,000. Since I've been incarcerated, she's found out that I was having an affair. And she's so upset about it. My fear is she's going to give them that money to make sure that I do all this time. And I was like, okay. And he said, I gave my brother about $30,000. I'm like, okay. And so we're walking. And I said, well, don't worry about it. She's not going to do that, blah, blah, blah. He's like, we'll see. And I remember thinking, is that enough to get me a sentence reduction? So maybe a month or so later, I call my lawyer. And when we're talking, she says, anything going on in there? I said, no, nothing. And she goes, you sure? Nothing? Which was weird, right? Like, you never wanted to talk to me before. And I was like, no. Well, I said, yeah, you know what? Listen to this. There's a guy here named Ron Wilson. So she types him up. She goes, oh, wow, this is a bad guy. And I said, this is what he told me. And she goes, okay, hold on. She said, look, I'll look into it for you. Okay. A week later, a correctional officer comes up to me and says, Cox, you got to go to SIS, which is internal security. So you got to go there on the next move. I go, okay. So I go there. Come here, Cox, sit down. Okay. He boop, 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 dials the phone. Here, what's going on? Like, I don't know what's happening. So I'm like, yeah, what's up? And this guy goes, hey, this is a Secret Service agent. And I'm like, yeah. He said, I understand you know where Ron Wilson hid Ponzi scheme money. I go, yeah, but I need something in writing saying you're going to give me something. And he goes, well, okay, I'll try, and blah, blah, blah. He ends up sending me something saying that if they recover any money, a substantial amount of money, or anybody's indicted, they will consider it substantial assistance and reduce my sentence. What else do I have? It's all I'm going to get. So I tell them what happened. They go, they interview Ron Wilson's wife. The next day, his wife comes in and gives him $350,000, including gold bullion, silver, because he was a silver dealer. They indict the wife and Ron Wilson. I've been emailing these people the Secret Service this whole time. That's pretty dangerous. If the other inmates found out, I could get a real bad beat down. But I want out of prison. And between Ron Wilson and me, it's going to be Ron Wilson. So one day I'm walking across the compound, Cox. And I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, hey, Ron.
So big shout out to Matthew Cox. I love that he said that. If it's gonna be between Rob Wilson and me, it's gonna be him. Absolutely. That was my theory too. If it's gonna be me or them, it's gonna be them, and that's the chance you take. He could, he tells you, there's a chance I could take a beating, but he wanted out of federal prison, and look how easy it was. He was able to make a call to his attorney. A couple of days later, they call him, and he basically said, "This is what I want. This is where I'll help you." And they got an indictment, and were able to use his information that was going to allow him to get a Rule 35. And he's sitting in federal prison. And a lot of those things that he says is like when he's emailing the Secret Service back and forth, it's in your mind that you're probably doing something wrong, but there's no inmates can't find out who you're emailing. That's between you and you only. And the only other people that will know is the prison guards, which could be dangerous at the same time. Most of the time they mind their business. It also depends who you are. If you're going to be this big shot caller that makes a lot of noise, and they're looking into your emails, and they find out that you're working with police, they might spread the word just because they don't like you or something, just so that everyone else could see what's going on or something. But in this particular case, it didn't happen. But Matthew Cox is a great storyteller. So
on what's up? And he says, you're not going to believe this. They indicted me. I'm like, huh? They indicted you? That's crazy. And he says, yeah, they indicted me.
So I love this. Imagine he's responsible for the indictment. He's talking to that person, and he's like, oh my God, that's crazy. And a lot of people could be like, oh my God, what kind of a piece of shit are you? But this happens every day. You deal with this stuff when you get cheated on a relationship, and when you cheat, you lie to the person you love to their face and lie. So it's hard for me to think that people could be like, how could they have done that? Oh my God. It happens each and every day, right? What people are willing to do to save their own asses, that you see it, you could go on YouTube and just look at cheaters, same thing.
And my wife and my brother, and I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. They end up taking him back to court. His wife gets like 100 hours of community service. Ron Wilson gets 6 months added onto his sentence. When I turn around and go to the court and say, hey, you said you reduced my sentence, the courts, the U.S. attorney, they ignore my requests. Then I go back to Frank and I explain it to Frank, and Frank files another 2255, goes back to the court, and the government says, we don't even know what Mr. Cox is talking about. But I had that letter.
Wow.
So I send that to the judge. The judge is like, listen, they give me a lawyer. The lawyer flies down. They say, we'll give you one level off. We argue. We end up getting 3 levels off my sentence, which is 5 years. By the time that happens, I'm like a year away from being released. Within 6 months to a year, I'm released. Can I trust you?
Wow. Great example. Sometimes the government doesn't always play fair, and that was great that he thought ahead and made sure he had something in writing. And it's one of these stories that you hear all the time, where the government would try to ignore you or forget about a promise that they made, or act like it didn't exist. And that was great of him that he was able to keep that letter, but he had to fight for his credit. And Rob got 6 extra months, and his wife got 100 hours community service, right? And I guess the one that made out the best was Matthew, because he ended up getting 3 levels off. He said a total of 5 years off his sentence. That's a long time. And that's why it's so popular, because you could get a time reduction, and 5 years off, 12-year sentence I think that he was serving, or 17-year sentence. I mean, that's a long time. Great example of what happens in the federal prison system, what happens in the criminal world, that you're basically for sale. And any information you give out, anything that you think you could trust somebody with, that's someone else's, get out of jail card. So it's better just to stay out the game and stay out of prison, and go get a real job, and do the right thing. You know what I love about Matthew Cox, I don't always love all his guests, but what I love is that he keeps it real. You go on his show, like, since day one, he's like, I cooperated. When I was in there, I would have told that anyone. I want to get out, and he's never like hid from it, and he's honest about it. And just to make it clear, I'm not saying because I love snitches. What I'm saying, I love that he's not being fake, that he's telling you what everyone thinks about, especially being in there. And Rule 35s are for real. Even me, for someone who was in the game for a long time, Like I knew Route 35s, I just didn't know how they work. But I remember, in my first month being in the shoe, I remember I got a kite, and it was it was a Lion King. Maybe a month, 2 months later, it was a Lion King. I remember he had came in, and they had put him in the shoe. I can't see him or nothing, but I know he's there. And sometimes you ask like, yo, who's here? You get me? Sometimes they want to talk, and they'll be like, I'm so and so from wherever. And I end up getting a kite. He's like, man, you don't know me, but I'm a Lion King. I'm a Lion King from Cicero, and I know who you are, whatever the case is. But I'm coming back on a writ. I remember asking like, what the fuck is a writ? Writ is when they take you from prison to go to court or whatever the case is. They bring you out of prison. And as a couple of days later, he told me, look, I got this many years or whatever the case is, but I'm going home. And I was like, how the fuck you going home? He's like, on a Route 35. And I remember like, I know Route 35, but how would it work for you? But he's like, I got I pen pal this white girl, and I convinced this white girl to do a Route 35. So she's been buying, ounces of crack from, these group of dudes in whatever suburb, whatever he said, and they're finally giving me a time cut, and I'm going home. I'll be going home, whatever, this day. And I was like, damn. He's like, yo, I could help you when I leave. If you need me to, you just say the word. I'll give you all my information, and I can make it happen. He said, there's a group of dudes in where I'm coming from that actually sell Route 35s, and actually there was even a website
Jesus Christ.
where people will set people up for you so that you could get time reduction. Depending on how much money you pay them, will be how much it'll determine what type of, like case they would give the feds or whatever the case is. But the feds have to accept it. So yeah, so Matthew Cox saying this, and actually this is what happened. This would kind of give Matthew Cox a significant amount of time off. I think he was looking at 23 years. I'm not sure how much time he did it in its entirety, but he's very knowledgeable about this topic, and he keeps it real about this and how things happen. And trust me, we are in a situation where people try doing Route 35 on us, and the first thing they tell you all the time is that don't trust anyone, don't talk to anyone, and you think it's not gonna happen, and trust me, people will try it. False information, they'll do anything to get out, and it always be the people that almost act like they didn't tell or whatever the case is. And in the real criminals that can exploit this type of stuff, like, yeah, I'm not gonna tell them right now, but I'll tell later. Especially if they get dudes, telling them about murders or robberies, home invasions, stuff like that. So it's very very common in these places, and obviously, like I've met people who got Rule 35s because they witness a murder in prison. Those are very common as well. You don't cooperate, you're there, you got a big sentence, you regret it like shit, and next thing you know, someone comes kill someone in front of you, and you're like, shit, I don't know him. Next thing you become a witness, and people go home off of this. So this is common, and I just love the thought about it, because in one episode, I'm not sure which one it is, Matthew Cox says, "Shit, why wouldn't I do that? I just met you. I don't know you. You get me? Well, I'm supposed to feel sorry for you or whatever." The
He
way
don't,
he did
yeah,
this,
and he don't come from the culture that embeds that shit in you on a daily basis. He there's no code of the streets that he feels like he's under.
but what I'm saying, but you're right about that. That's a good observation. But on the other side of it, it's like even the people with the code, that's exactly what they feel.
Of
Like
course.
to me, it's like if they're willing to rob you for your chain and kill you in the middle of the street, or they're willing to like do some of all the criminal shit they're willing to do. Why wouldn't they do that? You know what I'm saying? Like, why wouldn't they do that? It's
Absolutely.
just, it's like
Absolutely.
it's almost common sense. And I'm gonna tell you, many dudes do it. They plot, they use their girlfriends. He has a lot of stories about, Route 35s and different things. And it always, some of the stories of the people that say this is like, oh, I didn't want to, or I didn't know, like, AKA, Big Meech.
Right, because that's basically what it is. It's a third party situation.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you, we were victims of it one time too, with this group. And I could probably talk to you about so many things, but a lot of it always has to do with women. Okay. One of my, with women, like, cooperating for their man or their baby daddy or someone in
Mm.
the street, or they meet someone pen pal it, and they go and give it up to get information from somebody else, and it works. You get me? And it's very common, but I love that he puts it real. And you're right, Shai. He's not saying he's not representing the street. He was someone who who caught a case, and what the fuck did he care about this guy? You know?
Like at the same time, he ain't no fool. He's gonna, when in Rome, he's gonna play the game, right? He was in prison. He's gonna play the game. He's gonna try to not get caught doing what he's doing. But at the end of the day, he don't got no code he's trying to live up to. He just doing what he do.
Yeah, and I love that he's honest about it. And you know, he always has great guests as well, right? He has great guests. So I watch his show all the time, and I think he's also he does infomercials and stuff like that. He's a very smart guy, very intelligent. He also has this thing where I see him sometimes like I know he's probably been in prison. He probably heard everything. I love how he explains like him listening to ghetto ass people, you know, and stuff like that. And he has a lot of first hand accounts with different people that were criminals in the prison system. He knows how the prison system works. Yeah, for anyone who hasn't checked out his channel, go check it out. He has a variety of different content from different people. This is Matthew Cox with Eddie Soto. He's one of the cartel crew members. I don't know much about him. I heard just small clips of this. I didn't hear the ending of it, so I'm just gonna give PSA right now that if after all this past stuff he comes back and says something positive, like I regret that life, or it was stupid of me and this is who I am today. But I don't think he did, because he continues to say like, go ask about me, I'm this, I'm that industry, and but then I hear him say that he was stupid as a young kid or whatever. So I don't know. If anyone's seen this, you guys should tell me. But there's a few things that I caught my attention. Me and Shay talk about it a lot. We talk about it that like real dudes don't ever come back and say, I'm gonna talk about this shit, later, and talk about all the stuff you got away with or whatever. I'm not a real dude, so I could talk about this because we didn't know his story, and he came here and told his story. So I feel like it gives me the right to basically speak my mind and speak my opinion. Because I will say that Cartel Crew only exists just because Val and Vivi decided to turn down the original show that was going to be called Cartel Wives. And they had a pivot and they called Cartel Crew and found someone else.
The life of crime started at a really early age.
Okay.
I left the house at 8. I was on the streets at 9. Already trying to figure shit out. Yeah, I had my first pistol at 11, which I have tatted on me, a fucking Desert Eagle. Mind you, I couldn't even carry that shit at that time.
And there it is, guys.
Bruh, I don't want to hear that shit from motherfuckers that I love. I don't want to hear the stories, man. Get the fuck out of here.
Hey, bro. No, listen to what he said. He said he was 11. And he's a big dude, bro. But he said he was 11 with a Desert Eagle, bro.
A big
Like,
ass yard boy, 11 with a yard, break your whole arm into pieces.
Listen. I had I had a few Desert Eagles in my time. I actually had gold ones. We gifted one to Chopper, one to my gold plated 50 caliber Desert Eagles. Okay, I mean they weigh like 8 pounds, bro. I kid you not. I couldn't even put the hammer back. You know what I'm saying? Like, all right, bro. He had a Desert Eagle when he was 11.
15, heavy in the streets, already catching gun charges, all sorts of shit. So my life of crime started at about the age of 9. Ended at 25 when I finally caught my fair case. But in between there, I got arrested 61 times.
Is this
all
just
sorts of shit, man.
just drugs?
61 times. Shy, so you can't be gangster. You never got arrested once, so you're not gonna be a gangster like Eddie. This is what YouTube is. This is why I don't do it. This is why I come on Shy's. This is exactly why I come to Shy, because you know what? I'm tired of everyone coming on the thing and just glorifying the shit of what they used to do. They were Rambo, this and that. Fucking, they were rich. They were the biggest drug lords. They knew so and so, and my cousin's uncle, sister, sweetie, husband sucked some from Pablo Escobar, like whatever it was. You know what I'm saying? This is why I don't do it. This is why I don't go on no fucking YouTube channel, because I'm gonna sound like this, and they're gonna be like, Jay's full of shit.
You sound like everybody else.
I'm gonna sound like everyone else. Again, Mr. Soto's story could be true, but I'm just saying it's just like crazy,
I remember having to call a Comcast guy to come open up the electricity box. It was like a townhouse sort of setup, and because my main breaker had went out, so the Comcast guy had access to that. But we were like, so we knew how to con everything, man. Like we knew how to get around everything. So we called the Comcast guy, ordered fucking cable, and the guy came. We held him up at gunpoint, gave him $100, told him, you never saw nothing, leave this shit open. And I remember me and one of my guys going in there at like fucking 2 o'clock in the morning, trying to change this breaker, and the whole fucking box blew up on us. like one blew up and then just all started to blow up. I remember like I was blinded and deaf, and I remember touching my guy. I'm like, hey, you alive? And I could hear him. I'm like, holy shit, there's a dead body next to me. And after like 2 minutes, obviously, you know, it was just a couple burns or whatnot. But fuck, man, yeah, that was. I got stories for days as far as the whole cultivating thing, just learning that. But I mean, it was everything.
No. Wait, what you mean? You just said it wasn't that bad, and then you said the story's crazy. It was just a couple of burns and scratches. I just feel like if you live a long life, if you're blessed enough to live a long life, even if you live a short, fast one, you got stories to tell. That's cool. Every story is interesting for me to. I don't know, man. I got a million stories, dog. I could tell you a million stories that kicked that one in the ass. I don't even like reminiscing. Fuck reminiscing, man. I don't know. It's just me, though. That's just me. All right, y'all try to change a box. The box blew up. Y'all got burnt. Okay, so what? And then you say I got a million stories. Okay, tell the next one. That one didn't land.
I'm gonna highlight Matthew Cox because Matthew Cox, you never know. He really thinks the guy's like telling a real story. He's full of shit, or he probably just doesn't care. He's just like, give it to me.
I believe dude's story, but it's like everybody is looking for the story, and so since we don't have the big story, maybe we're gonna tell all of the little stories. And it's not just him. It's just what I hear on the internet is if you stole a car, you could tell your story on the internet.
Yeah, I think that's tricky. It's weird because it's like I don't know. Like I haven't given him much thought if what he's saying is true. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Maybe, why not? Whatever. I just feel like the whole environment, and I think he just got picked on today just because, you know, we're reviewing Matthew Cox. Matthew Cox has a lot of great interviews on here too as well. But
I mean, I knew the game so well. I knew how to commit crime so fucking well that I was not going to stop. And
you knew how to commit crime so well, you got caught. You got caught. How does that sound? You know, I could say shit like that because I didn't get caught, guys. FYI. But
so mind you, at that time, my mentality is like, I'm going to get my revenge. These are just local narcs. You know, I'm like, I'm going to fucking take these guys out. Me and my guys are plotting. We're about to go to war with fucking local narcs. And right around that time, I got probation for that charge. The feds started to.
So look, the narcs got so lucky that Eddie Soto didn't come and get revenge and kill all the cops in the whole damn Miami. Thank God for the feds. Again, sure, why not? People who live in Miami, maybe they watch too much Scarface, they start believing this shit. Who knows, you know?
And then they get, after the life of crime, they get political and shit. And again, I don't know dude from a hole in the wall. I don't know who the cartel crew is. I don't know his story. He's just being used as an example because I could click on a million videos like this and it's like, all right, Papa, you stole a car, you sold some dope, you smacked a motherfucker, you did this. All right, you lived a life. So everybody's telling the same bullshit. Who cares? Everybody got a story now.
Yeah.
I will see a helicopter hovering over me. I'm like, bro, this can't be me, man. Like, I'm not fucking no Chapo. This is impossible, right? So then I go back to the house.
Chapo's very popular nowadays.
And then I leave again, and these motherfuckers are on top of me again. I'm like, holy shit.
Goodfellas.
Fucking feds. I knew how to maneuver the state. I fucking, you know, paid the judges and the DAs in the state, but these guys are not to be fucked with.
What?